Hello again, gamers and gamettes, and welcome back to yet another episode of Not So Hardcore Gaming. I'm Jeremy, and with me today I have our good friend Blaze.
Hey guys.
So today we're going to be talking about Need for Speed Payback. This is one of the first Need for Speed games I have actually played. I've never really done many previously, so I can't compare to old games. I don't know about you.
I've played a few, not a lot of them, not all of them, like a few of them.
Yeah. Will you be drawing comparisons to old games or what?
Um, like maybe like I've played. I haven't played many of the recent ones. I haven't played like Rivals. I played the self-titled Need for Speed, and Need for Speed Payback, which is what we're reviewing. I played Need for Speed Heat, the newest. But yeah, I haven't played Rivals or like Most Wanted. I played Need for Speed Pro Street back in the day on the PlayStation 2.
Oh.
That was a really good game. Underground, Carbon. I played all of those.
I played one. There was one where you could play as racers or as the cops as well.
Most Wanted.
That one, yeah. That I did play that one, but it's been a while. But anyway, so we may make comparisons, but honestly, that won't really affect our view on the game. But we'll get right into it. Firstly, we'll just talk about visuals and audio. The visuals, for me, very, very high quality.
Visually stunning.
Yeah, there's obviously you've got things in the distance which look good. You can see the city sometimes up ahead. You've got basically the desert parts of it. Then you've got the big city. There's just a few different areas which look completely unique, and it's a really good contrast for each zone.
I like the little details, like when you hit something, sparks fly up. The smoke looks realistic. When you do a burnout,
and being able to color that is awesome.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Having the nitrous out when you use it, getting the flame from that, looks great.
It all looks visually stunning. When you hit something, your car does damage, as per a racing game should do nowadays.
Yeah.
And the change of daytime from day to night is brilliant.
Yeah.
Dirt flying up when you're like bush bashing. That's really cool. So yeah, visually it is really good. I love looking at this game. I love playing this game visually.
Yeah. The audio as well. The voice acting was I do like. The characters again, as I've said for many other games, the characters and voices just go well together.
They match. They definitely match the voice actors and characters.
And then you've got some of the guys you're fighting against. They just get very angry. They're assholes basically, and this voice acting fits them.
The only problem I found with audio, which I think you and I have discussed previously, is like you could be winning a race, be like miles ahead, and he still says, "Come on, gotta win this." Like, cool.
Yeah.
There's no one in sight, like.
Yeah, I did that at one point, and they were like 5Ks behind me. I was like, "Yeah, you're good, dude. You're good."
Could have 3 crashes and you still win.
Yeah. So yeah, that gets a bit repetitive and just it's not needed. But most importantly, the sounds for the cars. Every car sounds a little bit different. I found that there are a lot of different sounds.
See, as a car guy, that's what they call me anyway. As a car guy in real life, when they make the obvious sound differences between like a rotary engine and a 8-cylinder, they make obvious differences, but every car sounds the same. There's no audio difference unless it's a completely different car or engine. And just going back to the visuals, I'm going to class it as visuals, but every car is rear wheel drive. Even a car that in real life is front wheel drive, like the Ford Focus in real life is a front wheel drive, but in the game is a rear wheel drive, and that turned me off a little. I seen that and I was like, oh, that's not how it is in real life. They clearly didn't do their research, so I feel like that was a lack of enthusiasm into actually looking into these cars before. There are some cars that are front wheel drive, like the Honda Civic, but that's an obvious front wheel drive. The Ford Focus is still an obvious front wheel drive, but it's rear wheel drive in the game. So little details like that, and all the cars sound the same unless they're obviously different. Like RX-7 is a rotary engine; it's not going to sound like a 6-cylinder.
I found like when you upgraded them, they sounded more aggressive, that type of thing. I did notice some difference, but then again, that could be some kind of placebo.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. It probably is because I've gone from having a bone stock car to fully upgraded within seconds and not noticed any sort of sound difference, except the revving. The revving, it may sound different because it revs quicker because it's trying to go quicker in the game, but the sound itself is the same.
Okay, well, I'm not a car guy, so most of that stuff goes in one ear out the other. But yeah, I personally don't really have any major criticisms because I don't know much what I'm talking about. But yeah, we'll move on.
Don't get me wrong, it sounds nice. It's just the sound is all the same. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't sound nice. I'm just saying a little indifference would have been awesome.
Yeah, makes sense. But anyway, we'll move on before you get onto a tangent.
But before I start having a tantrum about it.
So we've talked a little bit about the audio for the cars. So now we'll just mention the cars themselves. Firstly, this is kind of a positive and a negative. Having the different race types where you have to buy different cars to fit each one, it is a bit monotonous, I would say, but I guess it's also sort of realistic for it.
Very realistic. Unless you can manage to set up a car to do drift and drag at the speeds it needs to, that takes a lot of money, a lot of time. But if you want to, in real life, you want to do a drag race, you got to build a car dedicated for it. Yeah. You want to do drifting, you got to build a car dedicated for it. So it is. And you're not going to get a road car that can go off-road and race without off-road bits. So it is realistic in that sense. But as I said, it can be monotonous, but I don't mind it. Pardon me, sorry, I burped. I personally don't mind it because I'd buy the car. I use my race car to get around, but then I'd have the drag car there, and if I needed to upgrade it before I went to a race, I just quickly swap. And so it didn't really take too much out of my day.
It wasn't particularly bad. It just, as someone who most racing games I've played, you only really need to have one car at a time. It is a bit of an adjustment having all of them, and it's a bit frustrating when you're at a certain point and you need to have a certain race type car, but you can't get one good enough. Sometimes it's better to have the car you're already in, and you can do it as well. Just in terms of convenience, I guess.
I'm used to this sort of system because, as I said earlier, I played Need for Speed Pro Street back in PlayStation 2, and I had the same system. Need for Speed Pro Street didn't have a free roam system; it was all races, but it had a very similar system. So I'm used to this sort of thing. It's not a big deal for me. As I said, it doesn't take, because I usually do the different sets of missions all together anyway. I'll go from one to the other really quickly, and then I can just go back to my race car to get around. So it doesn't bother me personally. But what does bother me while we're talking about cars is the lack of what's that word I'm looking for? Variety. And there's no in between. They've gone from domestic market cars straight to supercars. There's no
I
no real
did
in
notice
between
it.
there.
I noticed that was lacking quite a bit. It was a shame because obviously I like having the super fast cars, but they're sort of, you have to get one of those as soon as you unlock it, otherwise you can't really do anything.
Well, see,
And it's sort of frustrating because there's not much option at all.
story wise, I actually, on my last playthrough of Need for Speed Payback, I kept the same cars I started with, and I still beat the game that way. But it did make it a little bit more difficult because they weren't as fast as your hypercars, your
That
supercars.
can be a positive though, for sure.
It is a positive that you can keep the same car you started with. There's nothing wrong with that. I actually found it a lot easier because I fell in love with my 4 different cars. It was a lack of variety.
Yeah.
Like there was, you got your different cars. You got your R34s, your RX7s. You got all those, but it was just missing a certain in between domestic car and supercar. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how you'd.
I guess that is probably the positive of having the different race types, is that gives you more variety for the cars. Without having the different race types, I don't feel like there would have been half as much variety.
There wouldn't have to be, really.
And it is better to have at least that level of variety, even if it changes the game rather significantly. I guess it does end up working.
Now, I love the Toyota Supra. Toyota Supra, not my favourite car, but I love the car itself. It's a good car. And the fact you can't get that car, you can't get any Toyota in Need for Speed. Any Need for Speed game recently, you cannot get a Toyota in. These questions were asked, and Toyota made a statement saying that they don't support illegal street racing, and they believe, much like parents of young adult kids nowadays thinking Grand Theft Auto makes their kids want to shoot everyone, Toyota believe that putting their cars in these games would encourage people to illegally street race in their cars, which people already do, so I don't know what they're talking about. But so I was a little upset you couldn't get the Toyota Supra or any sort of Toyota car in there, because Toyota make a very good car. They could have put their Land Cruiser as one of the dirt cars. That would have been awesome. But the fact you can't get it, you can't get any Toyota, was a little depressing. Not the Need for Speed company's fault. I think Ghost maybe is Need for Speed. Not their fault. I did like how with, pardon me, I'm still burping. Car customization. Are we putting that in this category?
Yeah, definitely.
I love how they added Origin Labs, Rocket Bunny, all those brands for different customizations. It wasn't just, here's Need for Speed's version of these customizations. They actually put the proper brand in there. And as a car guy, I really like that, because I admire RX-7s with a full Rocket Bunny kit, and I got that. I could build my one of my dream cars in the video game because it had all the proper parts there, and I really fell in love with that.
Yeah, I again don't really know the brands and style. I just, with customization, I go, hey, that looks cool, and choose it. That's it.
That's why you got me here, sunshine.
Well, yeah, it appeals to them. In terms of like not having the Toyota ones, I will say that was that's a shame. And obviously I don't agree with the viewpoint of like that they have there, but I understand it because it's for public image.
Oh yeah, public image is a big thing for big companies like that. But if a big company like Pagani is one of the biggest supercar builders in the world, they put their car in there. Why, like, their image is more important than Toyota's image. Like Toyota makes domestic cars, these guys make supercars, and if you want to sell your supercar, you got to have a good image. So they're not worried about their image in these games, whereas Toyota is, and it just doesn't make sense to me personally.
It is. It's not something I agree with, but I see that type of stuff a lot. So after a while, you just think, oh, okay, whatever. But yeah, as I think, as well as that, it could be counted as advertising as well for some of these brands. They have their cars in the game. Someone might look at it and say, "Hey, maybe I want to get one of those," and they're turning down that, basically.
Yeah, that's it. And if car companies are looking at it like that, Toyota doesn't need that. Toyota's already one of the biggest company, if not the biggest car company in the world, next to Nissan, Subaru, Ford. There's another thing. I understand the games in America, but can we have Holden? Like, that would have been awesome. Like, I remember playing Juiced back in the day, and you could get the Holden Monaro. Juiced is not a Need For Speed game. It's a completely different franchise, but you could get a Holden Monaro. It's an American game. You could get Holdens and Fords. You could get a Ford Falcon. I love my Ford Falcon. And the fact that you couldn't get, like, you got the Ford Mustang, but that's an American car. They really did not reach out very far. They had your Japanese cars, your American cars, and then your supercars, your Italians and German supercars. That was about it.
Yeah, it would be good to have more variety from that perspective. But yeah, it being overseas, it's kind of understandable because Americans, they don't really go outside their own wheelhouse.
No, not at all.
Which, it's a shame, but it's nothing new. So, and another thing about the cars as well, as you mentioned, like with the customization, being able to add your own spoiler, change the front, is it fender? Is that the one? Bumper. Thank you. Doing those, it's good to have that customization option, because you can have the same car model with 100 different designs just by changing one or two things.
Oh, it's limitless to how much you can parts. But then now not a lot of people like this, but I actually did like this. If you put a certain front bumper on, but it didn't match like the fenders, you couldn't put that fender on unless you took that bumper off. And I did like that because that's realism right there. I can't go to my car, put a part on, and expect a different part that won't fit to fit. So I really did like that.
I like the realism aspect, but it's a shame not being able to do it. So I can get both sides of that argument for sure.
Definitely. I don't really have much more to say about the cars, but
no, I don't really either.
Variety in cars lacked. Customization variety was awesome.
Yeah, couldn't put it better myself.
6 out of 10 for cars.
I don't really give 1 to 10 ratings. So moving on to gameplay. Firstly, again, we'll mention that there are different race types. You've got your race type, you've got off-road, your drift, your drag, and your runner cars. So that there's the 5 different ones, and each one handles differently. That I like. Again, it gives more gameplay to have. So really, it when you combine the multiple aspects of it, having the different 5 types of races is actually really a positive. And as I think about it more, I think it works. I'd rather have that than not. So I will correct myself earlier then. But continuing, having the different race types it's fun. You can do a set of one and then go into another, or you can just drive around randomly. You can do old races with new cars. All of that. The gameplay aspect is really, really good for me.
I did like the different race types. it brought a sense of realism. You know, you drag, you race, you drag, you drift. I don't really have much to say about it. Like all the races were unique, which was awesome. Some races were too short, some races were too long. I can't really complain too much or say too much about it. I don't really. It was well done. You know, it comes back to like when in the races, it comes back to the voice acting, I guess, when you'd be winning and the boss that you're battling says, you know, we've got to beat this fool, but you can't because you're just about the finish line, like it's. But it was very well done. It was very well done.
Yeah. In terms of gameplay itself, though, being able to drift, you can do that with just about any car, but it does end up different. Like if you do it in a race type car, you don't drift as far. The handbrake can be a lot stronger, so you actually lose your speed too quickly. And like for something like a drag car, you can't really drift.
Not at all.
So having the different types of cars doing that differently is good. The acceleration being different, pretty much everything changes just a little bit from car type, and I do very much love that.
Oh, I love that. I love the whole controls in the controls, the sensitivity of every control, the button placement. All of that was very well done. And how as you said, the different car has different like sensitivities when it comes to steering, drifting, that sort of thing, traction and whatnot. All changes. I really did like that. The drag car, very hard to control when you're trying to do a sprint race, because some story missions require you to do a sprint race in your drag car. That sucked. That really did, but I still did not find them all that difficult. It still was manageable. It's
more just adjusting.
I love the live tuning.
Yeah, that's one thing I was going to say. Very good.
I love sitting there, and it just makes it a bit easier for me to adjust my car so that I can very easily just get a handle of. I don't really have to learn a different car. I can adjust it, play around with it a bit, make it perfect for me and the way I play. So yeah, everything gameplay wise was beautiful. I loved it. The only thing I didn't like was them rocks. So, you know, sometimes you'd be on a dirt track and there'd be like a pile of rocks just over on the side. Then you try to go over them, but it's like a big barrier. You hit it, you got to start again.
Well, one problem I did find with it is every now and then I would go into a little ditch. A ditch about 50 centimeters at its deepest point, and it resets me. I just go the tiniest bit off and suddenly I'm reset. That I did not like.
Yeah, I didn't like that that much either. Like and if you hit something, and it would be quicker for you to just readjust and go again. It still resets you. The quick reset did get frustrating after a while.
Yeah, very. As it sort of just after a while it becomes a nuisance, and obviously, like, in some cases it is helpful, but in the long run, that just really was not done very well for me. So moving on again, we just want to quickly mention about the side bets aspect of the game. I think it was done very well because it adds an element of difficulty, one that you can choose instead of just going and in some games how you just put the AI up a bit. This one, it keeps them at the same level, but it can make things a tiny bit more difficult for you. Like near misses, you have to come close to crashing but not doing it. It really does. It plays into the game very well, and the fact that you get a better reward for it is great. And this is one of the best aspects of the game for me.
I do love the side bets they did. Like, it made it easy to get some extra cash. You didn't have to worry so much about grinding for that cash. Some of them were a bit ridiculous. Like, do a 20-kilometer race at 300 something kilometers an hour and don't hit any cars like that.
Yeah.
That was very ridiculous. But then there was some drift 400 meters in one single drift. That was a little hard, but it wasn't unattainable. Some dirt races had, hit 50 objects. Cool. I did that within the first 100 meters. Like, a lot of them were quite easy. The ones I did struggle with were don't hit anything for a set amount of time, or don't hit anything at all.
And as I said, being able to choose every time, like you can replay the same race 10 times and you get to choose each time, it is really good because it's a pick and choose type thing. You can choose to push yourself or you can choose to be safe. And it's a very simple system, but absolutely great. I do love it. So pretty much the last thing we're going to talk about is the multiplayer. And to put it simply, multiplayer was lacking.
Very lacking.
Yeah, you've got the speed traps, the jumps, that type of thing. That's about it. If you want to do a race, you have to set it up yourself. It would be good if you had like an option to do a race that you could do in single player mode against real people, but that's just not an option.
It's got its all drive. It's got its two modes, all drive and the racing. The racing sucked because nothing was matched properly. You'd have people rocking up with, completely fully leveled up cars. And the first time I played, I wanted to try multiplayer. I was like, cool, I'll try a couple of races in my, under level car, and I thought they'll match properly. They'll match us properly. No, not at all. I was in my little Honda Civic that was, about 200 horsepower going up against Lamborghinis. I'm sitting there like, I have no chance. I'm about to die today. Like, the matchmaking sucked. But then you go all drive. There's nothing to do in all drive. You got all your jumps, speed traps. You can do that in single player anyway in the base game. You set up a race. Cool. You only got 10 people to race against. 10 people including yourself. So it's not really all that fun.
Yeah, it's like setting up the race can be a good thing, but that's all there is to do. So it sort of it did get a bit boring. You're just driving around doing nothing.
I got very boring.
Yeah.
I found myself, and as much as I hate to admit this, I found myself just running into random people just for fun.
Yeah, he slogged me about half a kilometre down the road at one point.
It was fun because he was going top speed, I was going top speed, we smashed into each other, bam, we're all doing like cartwheels. It was awesome.
I was parked and the bastard ran up and knocked me flying.
I love that too. But that's the thing.
That's the only fun thing about this multiplayer mode, if I'm being honest, is just crashing into each other.
There's nothing great about it. It sucks. This game sucks.
And it is rare that I have a really genuine critique on a game. Like, if you've listened to these episodes, you know I am pretty much entirely positive. But this is one thing I cannot find positives in. Maybe one or two little positives. The rest is just crap.
I just want to throw it out there before we finish this up. We forgot to mention it in gameplay. Is that stupid ass slot machine that gives you parts? What were you thinking, Need for Speed? If you're listening to this, what were you thinking? That was idiotic. I hated sitting there. If I wanted to gamble, I'd go to a casino. The parts system itself sucked. You couldn't just go buy the parts. You could buy parts, but you couldn't just buy them select. You had to wait until the tune-up shop inventory refreshed before you could buy different parts.
Yeah, the inventory refresh, if you were able to just spend a little bit of extra money to refresh it, it wouldn't be quite so bad.
Yeah.
If, like the slot machine, if you wanted a specific part and you were able to invest more of those roll tokens to get a very specific part, that would be good too.
It sucked.
But they went halfway and fell off a cliff. They could have gone the full way and been fine.
It was half-assed, it was dull, it was stupid. I hate it.
Yeah, for me, I wasn't as upset about it, but I can definitely see, why people dislike it, and I myself don't like it. I deal with it. as I said, there are things they could have done better for that system, but they just didn't quite get it.
I think they let us down with this game, really. There are things I love, there are things I hate, but there are things I hate overall, the things I love. I give this game a solid 4 out of 10, personally.
For me, the things I like about it actually outweigh the things I don't, just for me personally, because I tend to look on that bright side. I have genuine fun doing it. Every now and then I get really angry with it because, and this is one thing I didn't mention earlier, in some cases, it doesn't make the game more difficult by making the AI smarter. It makes the game more difficult by screwing you over at every possible opportunity.
Them police chases were idiotic, I reckon.
Yeah. And so that is just one of the biggest critiques I had on it, was just sometimes it screwed you over to make it impossible rather to make it difficult. And that is probably what ended up getting me the most. But in the end, I still have a lot of fun playing it, so it is something I'm okay to continue playing. I tend to have the positives outweigh the bad. So, yeah, for me, I don't know, I'd probably say a 7 out of a 10. There's a lot they could have done better. Maybe a 6 out of 10 when you include like multiplayer. As there is a lot of good for this game, but there is also a lot of bad. I really think that it could have been improved greatly, for sure.
There's so much that could have been improved.
Yeah, definitely. With all of that said, I think it's just about time we finish this episode. So thank you for joining, Blaze.
Welcome. I hope to come back soon.
Or we'll always be happy to have you on.
I'm happy to be on. Gives me something to do with my day.
And with that, I will finish. This is Not So Hardcore Gaming. I'm Jeremy, signing off.
See ya.